cool marble of the tomb reflected the last rays of the October sun as Grayson Sterling ran his trembling fingers over the engraved letters. Alexander James Sterling, beloved son, free spirit. The deadline, October 15, 2021, still tore at him like a knife through his chest. 2 years passed, but the pain remained as vivid as the day he last held his son's small hand. Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with its winding paths and ancient trees, had become his weekly refuge. It was there, in that silent part of the world, that Grayson allowed his masks to fall. The powerful CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals, an imposing figure in Boston business circles, was simply a grieving father. On that particular afternoon, something different broke his lonely routine. Children's voices, soft as distant bells, floated through the autumn air. Grayson looked up, finding 2 small, identical figures kneeling before Alexander's tomb. 2 girls, no older than 7, with light brown hair tied in identical braids and matching red coats. "Hi, Alex," one of them whispered. "Mommy said you were very brave. We want to be brave like you too." Grayson remained still, his heart racing at the surreal scene before him. The girls had not noticed his presence, continuing their innocent conversation with their deceased son. "Luna, I think we brought too many flowers," the other girl commented, arranging a bouquet of white daisies. "There's no such thing as too many flowers, Lily," Luna replied with the peculiar wisdom only children possess. "Mom said he loved flowers." The mention of a mother who knew details about Alexander piqued Grayson's curiosity. He approached cautiously, not wanting to scare the little visitors. "Hello," he said softly. The girls turned simultaneously, their light blue eyes widening in recognition. "You're his father," Luna, or was it Lily, declared with certainty. "Mom has your picture in the lab." Grayson felt his stomach flip. "Who is your mother?" "Dr. Charlotte Cooper," they responded in unison, pride evident in their voices. The name hit Grayson like a bolt of lightning. Charlotte Cooper was a brilliant researcher who had briefly worked at Sterling Pharmaceuticals but left abruptly 18 months ago. Her research projects into rare genetic diseases were revolutionary, but she always kept a low profile. "Why are you here?" Grayson asked gently, sitting down on the bench next to the grave. The girls exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. It was Lily who responded, "Because we have the same thing Alex had. Mom is trying to help us, just like she tried to help him." Grayson's world seemed to stop. Callaway syndrome, the same rare disease that took their son, now threatened these 2 innocent girls. His mind went back to Alexander's last days, to the endless nights in the hospital, to the helplessness he felt when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. "Where is your mother now?" he asked, his voice husky with suppressed emotion. "In the secret laboratory," Luna replied, before Lily could stop her. "Oops, I wasn't supposed to tell." "It's okay," Grayson assured, even though his mind was spinning with possibilities. "How did you guys get here?" "Aunt Maddie brought us," Lily explained, pointing to a young woman watching from a distance. "She takes care of us when Mom is working." Maddie quickly approached, clearly concerned about the girl's prolonged interaction with a stranger. Her recognition of Grayson was immediate, and she gave an awkward little bow. "Mr. Sterling, I'm sorry. The girls insisted on coming. They found out about Alex through Charlotte's research and—" "Don't apologize," Grayson interrupted her gently. "They brought a little light to this place today." As the twins said goodbye to Alex, promising to return next week, Grayson felt something awaken inside him, something that had long been dormant. Charlotte Cooper was somewhere, working tirelessly to save her daughters from the same disease that took her Alexander. Fate had intertwined their stories in a way that could not be ignored. Watching the girls walk away hand in hand with Maddie, Grayson made a decision. He would find Charlotte Cooper. If there was a chance, however small, to prevent other families from going through the same pain he experienced, he would dedicate all his resources to it. even if it meant reliving every painful moment of his loss. For the first time in 2 years, Grayson left the cemetery with a purpose beyond grief. The sun was setting over the Boston skyline, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, as if the universe itself was signaling that there was hope beyond the grief. It was time to turn his tragedy into something bigger than himself. Charlotte Cooper rubbed her tired eyes as she looked at the DNA samples through the microscope. Her makeshift laboratory, housed in an old warehouse in Somerville, was far from the sterile, high-tech environment of Sterling Pharmaceuticals, but it was all she could afford with her savings. The exposed brick walls and tall windows created an almost Gothic atmosphere, especially in the late hours when only the bluish light from the equipment illuminated the space. Her phone vibrated. It was Maddie's 5th message that afternoon. Charlotte finally decided to check it out, her heart racing as she read about the girl's encounter with Grayson Sterling at the cemetery. Her hands shook slightly as she typed a response, asking Maddie to bring the twins directly home. "Damn," he muttered, running his fingers through his messy hair. Meeting Grayson wasn't in his plans, not yet. He needed more time, more data, more certainty before approaching him with his research. The sound of heavy footsteps in the hallway made Charlotte freeze. No one but her and her small circle of trust knew about this place. Quickly, he began putting away his most sensitive notes when the laboratory door opened. "Dr. Cooper." Grayson Sterling's deep voice filled the space. "So this is where you hide." Charlotte straightened her posture, trying to maintain her composure. "Mr. Sterling, how did you find me?" "Let's just say I have the resources," he replied, advancing through the lab, his eyes roaming the makeshift equipment. "Although I must admit that following Maddie was not my most ethical decision. My daughters shouldn't have—" "Went to Alex's grave?" Grayson interrupted her, his voice softening. "Why not? They have every right to be there, just as you have the right to tell me that you are continuing the research you started at Sterling." Charlotte felt the weight of 2 years of secrets pressing down on her chest. "I was going to look for you. When I was sure." "How did your theory work?" Grayson approached a table full of notes. "The same theory you tried to present to me 2 weeks before Alex." "Yes," Charlotte whispered, "but the Sterling board turned down the financing. They said it was too experimental, too risky." "And now you're running out of time," Grayson added, picking up a photo of the twins that was pinned to the bulletin board. "How long, Charlotte?" "Doctors say 18 months at most." His voice broke. "But I'm close to something. The latest laboratory tests show a promising response to modified gene therapy." Grayson walked to the window, watching the sunset over the rooftops of Somerville. The silence between them was filled with unspoken possibilities and fears. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" he asked finally. "Because I saw what losing Alex did to you," Charlotte replied, approaching cautiously. "I couldn't ask him to relive that pain, not without being sure he had something concrete to offer." "What if I told you I wanted to help?" Grayson turned to face her, not as CEO of Sterling, but as someone who understands exactly what's at stake. Charlotte felt her defenses begin to crumble. "It would be complicated. My current research, not everything is within conventional protocols." "Is that why you're hiding here?" Grayson gestured to the makeshift laboratory. "Charlotte, do you have any idea of the resources we could mobilize together?" "I'm scared too," she admitted. "Afraid of giving girls hope and failing like—" "How did I fail Alex?" Grayson added softly. "Maybe that's why our paths crossed, so we don't make the same mistakes." Charlotte watched the man in front of her, not the powerful CEO, but the father who, like her, carried the weight of an impossible fight against time. In her eyes, she saw the same fear that haunted her every night when she kissed Luna and Lily to sleep. "Girls ask about you," she said softly. "Ever since they saw your picture in the article about Callaway syndrome, they think you're some kind of hero who's going to help Mom find a cure." A sad smile crossed Grayson's face. "I'm no hero, Charlotte, just a father who couldn't save his son. But maybe we can do something different this time." Charlotte hesitated for a moment before walking over to her computer. "Want to see where I am in the search?" Grayson nodded. and together they pored over the data filling the screen. As Charlotte explained her findings, a different energy began to fill the lab, a mix of hope and determination that neither of them had felt in a long time. The sun had completely disappeared by the time they finally finished reviewing the research. Charlotte realized it was time to pick up the girls from Maddie's house. "Come have dinner with us," she found herself saying, surprising herself. "The girls would love to get to know you properly." Grayson seemed to hesitate, fear momentarily visible in his eyes, but then he nodded. It would be an honor. As they closed the lab, they both knew something fundamental had changed. The path ahead was still uncertain, but now they had something they didn't have before: each other. Charlotte's small apartment in Somerville was cozy and chaotic in the way only a home with children can be. Toys neatly organized in colorful baskets shared space with scientific books stacked on the shelves, while the twins' drawings decorated the walls in an impromptu children's art exhibition. Grayson stood hesitantly in the doorway, feeling the familiar weight of anxiety tighten around his chest. The last time he had been in a house with children was his own, before Alex left. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the hallway, and Luna and Lily came running out of the kitchen, still wearing their red cemetery coats. "Mommy? Mommy? Mr. Sterling really came!" Luna exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "Can we show him our shell collection?" Lily added, gently tugging Grayson's jacket sleeve. Charlotte watched the interaction with a mix of concern and hope. "Girls, let's give Mr. Sterling a moment to settle in, okay? Why don't you go help Aunt Maddie finish setting the table?" The twins nodded in unison and ran back to the kitchen, their identical braids swinging in the air. Grayson removed his coat, revealing a navy blue shirt that highlighted the tension in his shoulders. "Are they always like this?" he asked, a weak smile playing on his lips. "Full of energy?" "Yes, even with—" Charlotte trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. "The doctor says it's important to keep them active while they can." The atmosphere was momentarily heavy, but it was broken by Maddie emerging from the kitchen with a steaming platter of lasagna. The comforting aroma of tomato sauce and herbs filled the room. "Charlotte makes the best vegetarian lasagna in Massachusetts," Maddie commented, trying to ease the tension. "The girls told me you found them today." "Actually, they found me," Grayson corrected softly, following the group to the dinner table. "I didn't know I had become a celebrity among 7-year-olds. Luna and Lily were already seated, their empty plates in front of them, and expectant expressions on their angelic faces. Charlotte noticed how they watched Grayson's every move, as if he were some kind of mythical creature materialized in their dining room. "Mr. Sterling," Luna began, her voice small but determined, "is it true that you have a giant laboratory with robots?" Grayson almost choked on the sip of water he was taking. "Well, we have some automated equipment, but not exactly robots." "Mom said you made medicine to help people," Lily added, as Charlotte served generous portions of lasagna, like the ones she's making for us. Grayson's fork stopped in midair. The innocence of the observation hit him like a punch in the gut. These girls spoke about their own condition with a disconcerting ease, as if they were discussing the weather. "Yes," he replied finally, his voice hoarse. "That's what we try to do, help people." Dinner progressed with the twins dominating the conversation, sharing stories about school, their dreams of being scientists like their mother, and occasionally asking surprisingly insightful questions about Grayson's work. Charlotte watched the interaction with a lump in her throat. Seeing her daughters talking animatedly with the man she had secretly admired for years, both professionally and for his strength in the face of tragedy, was surreal. After dessert, an apple pie that the girls helped make, Maddie took the twins to get ready for bed, leaving Charlotte and Grayson alone in the living room. "They are extraordinary," Grayson commented, looking at a photo of the twins on the wall. "They remind me so much of Alex. The same curiosity, the same light in his eyes." Charlotte approached, noticing how his fingers trembled slightly as they touched the frame. "Grayson, if this is too much for you—" "It's too much," he admitted, turning to face her. "But maybe that's exactly what I need. Seeing these girls so full of life and hope makes me realize that I can't let fear paralyze me again. Like this? When Alex got sick, I hid behind reports and numbers. I let the Sterling board make decisions that I should have questioned. I won't make the same mistake twice. Charlotte felt her heart accelerate. What are you proposing? I want to found an independent research division focused exclusively on rare diseases. No corporate bureaucracy, no conservative boards. Just the best scientists working with complete freedom and unlimited resources. He paused, his eyes meeting hers. And I want you to lead. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the hallway, followed by Maddie's soft voice telling a bedtime story. The moment seemed suspended in time, charged with unspoken possibilities and promises. I can't leave my current lab, Charlotte began, but Grayson gently interrupted her. I'm not asking you to leave. We can incorporate your current research, expand your operations. Charlotte, you don't have to do this alone anymore. Before she could respond, Luna and Lily appeared in the doorway, already in their pajamas, with sleepy but determined expressions. Mr. Sterling, Luna called, can you come and say goodnight? The innocent request made something break inside Grayson. For a moment, Charlotte saw fear cross his face, but then he smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time that night. It would be an honor, he replied, following the girls to their room. Charlotte remained in the room, her hands gripping the back of a chair as she listened to the soft voices in the next room. Grayson's proposal echoed in his mind, along with all its implications. This night had changed everything, and she knew there was no going back. Fate had intertwined their lives in a way neither of them could have predicted, and now all that was left was to move forward. Together. Grayson's office on the 42nd floor of Sterling Pharmaceuticals offered a panoramic view of Boston. But this morning his thoughts were focused on the small Somerville apartment where he had had dinner the night before. The twins' voices still echoed in his mind, bringing a bittersweet mix of pain and hope that he hadn't felt in years. Mr. Sterling, his assistant Patricia, interrupted his thoughts. The council is waiting in the meeting room. Grayson adjusted his tie, preparing for what would be possibly the most important meeting of his career. In the last 12 hours, he had crafted a proposal that would not only change the future of Sterling Pharmaceuticals, but potentially save Luna and Lily's lives. The meeting room was packed with the 12 council members, all in their impeccable suits and skeptical expressions. Marcus Whitman, the chairman of the board, was the first to speak. Grayson, this emergency meeting is quite unusual. I hope it's something substantial. It's more than substantial, Marcus. Grayson projected a series of slides onto the screen. I am proposing the creation of a new division, Sterling Innovation Labs, an independent research center focused exclusively on rare diseases. The buzz in the room was immediate. Barbara Chen, chief financial officer, frowned. This sounds extremely similar to the proposal we rejected 2 years ago. Because it was the right decision to make at the time, Grayson replied, his voice firm. But now we have new data, new technology, and... He paused significantly. An exceptional researcher to lead the project. The next 2 hours were intense. Grayson presented financial projections, preliminary results from Charlotte's research, carefully edited to protect her unconventional methods, and a detailed implementation plan. When he finished, the silence in the room was palpable. Marcus was the first to break it. This is about the Cooper twins, isn't it? Grayson didn't hesitate. Yes, and about Alex. And about every child we lost to Callaway syndrome because we decided it was too risky, too expensive, too experimental. You're emotionally involved, Barbara argued. Damn, of course I am. Grayson slammed the table, surprising everyone with his outburst. And that's exactly why it's going to work, because this time I'm not just looking at spreadsheets and reports. I'm looking at 2 brilliant girls who deserve the chance to grow up. As the council deliberated, Grayson checked his phone. There was a message from Charlotte with a photo of the twins at school, both holding signs about their science project. His heart sank when he saw their identical smiles, so full of life and possibilities. We need reassurance, Marcus finally announced. Strict protocols, constant supervision, weekly reports. They'll have it all, Grayson promised. But I need full autonomy in team selection and research decisions. After another hour of negotiations, the deal was reached. Sterling Innovation Labs would be a reality, with an initial budget of $50 million and unprecedented freedom to conduct experimental research. Leaving the meeting, Grayson drove straight to Charlotte's makeshift laboratory. He found her hunched over a microscope, her hair carelessly tied into a bun. "I did it," he announced without preamble. Charlotte looked up so quickly she almost dropped her samples. "Did the council approve it?" "Completely. You will have a state-of-the-art laboratory, an elite team, and complete freedom to continue your research." Tears began to form in Charlotte's eyes. "Grayson, I don't know what to say." "Tell them it will work," he replied, his voice cracking. "Say we can save your girls." Charlotte stood up, approaching him. "I can't promise that. You know I can't." "Then promise you'll try, with everything you have." "That I can promise." She hesitated for a moment before impulsively hugging him. Grayson tensed initially, but then relaxed into the embrace, allowing himself to feel the comfort of human contact that he had avoided for so long. When they separated, both tried to disguise the moment of shared vulnerability. Charlotte returned to her notes while Grayson examined the makeshift equipment. "We can start transferring to the new lab next week," he commented, trying to keep his voice professional. "The sooner we start." "The girls have an appointment with Dr. Patterson tomorrow," Charlotte interrupted softly. Would you like to come? It might be helpful to hear directly from him about the progress of the illness." The proposal took Grayson by surprise. Returning to the same hospital where Alex spent his final days seemed like a monumental task. But then he remembered Luna and Lily's smiles, their curious questions about science, how they talked to Alex in the cemetery. "What time?" he asked simply. Charlotte's smile lit up her tired face. 9 in the morning, Massachusetts General. "I'll be there," Grayson promised, knowing that every step of this journey would be an exercise in courage for both of us. Massachusetts General Hospital stood imposingly against the gray Boston sky, its windows reflecting the diffuse morning light. Grayson remained in his Tesla for a few minutes, his hands gripping the steering wheel as he tried to control the storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. The last corridor he had walked through in this hospital was to say goodbye to Alex. Charlotte waited at the entrance to the pediatric ward with the twins, each holding one of her hands. Unlike the night before, Luna and Lily were quiet, their normally cheerful faces set in a heartbreaking seriousness. "Good morning," Grayson managed to say, noticing how the girls instinctively squeezed their mother's hands when they saw him. They wore identical MIT sweatshirts, gifts from Charlotte that symbolized their shared dreams of becoming scientists. "Mr. Sterling," Luna whispered, "you've been here before, haven't you? With Alex?" The innocent question made Grayson stagger internally, but before he could respond, a nurse appeared calling the twins for preliminary exams. Charlotte hesitated, torn between accompanying her daughters and supporting Grayson. "Go with them," he said softly. "I'll wait here." While waiting, Grayson observed the movement of the hospital. Families coming and going, some with smiles of relief, others with barely contained tears. A small boy ran past with a toy car, his mother trying to catch up. The scene instantly transported him to 2 years ago. "Mr. Sterling?" Dr. Patterson's voice brought him back to the present. "Charlotte told me you were coming. The girls are finishing up their blood tests. We can talk in my office in the meantime." The office was different from the one where he had received the latest news about Alex, but the feeling of déjà vu was overwhelming. Dr. Patterson, a man in his 50s with graying hair and thin-rimmed glasses, sat behind his desk lined with family photos. "Charlotte told me about Sterling Innovation Labs," the doctor began. "It's an extraordinary initiative. I need to know exactly where we are, doctor." Grayson got straight to the point. "What is the twins' true prognosis?" Patterson removed his glasses, rubbing his tired eyes. "Callaway syndrome is progressing more rapidly in Lily. Her blood markers show accelerated deterioration over the past 3 months. Luna has the same symptoms, but at a slower rate. How long? With current treatment? Lily is about 14 months old. Luna may be 18. Patterson replaced his glasses. But Charlotte's research, well, I've never seen anything like it. If she's right about modified gene therapy. The door opened and Charlotte entered with the twins. Luna had a small bandage with stars on her arm, while Lily sported one with hearts. They both ran to Grayson as soon as they saw him. "Look, Mr. Sterling." Lily showed her bandage. "Nurse Jenny said we're her bravest patients. And she gave us lollipops." Luna completed, showing the still-wrapped candy. Grayson felt his heart sink when he saw how naturally they handled the situation. Dr. Patterson began explaining the test results to Charlotte, using technical terms the girls already seemed familiar with. "Mommy," Lily interrupted at one point, "can I show Mr. Sterling the playroom while you talk to the doctor?" Charlotte exchanged a look with Grayson, who nodded slightly. "Sure, honey, but stay where we can see you." The playroom was across the hall, visible through large glass windows. As the twins guided him through the colorful space, Grayson noticed how other pediatric patients greeted them by name. This was clearly a familiar place for them. "Alex used to play here too?" Luna asked as she organized Lego pieces. "Yes," Grayson replied, surprising himself with the ease of the answer. He loved building towers with those same Legos. "Can we build him a tower?" Lily suggested, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and sadness that seemed beyond her 7 years. For the next half hour, Grayson found himself completely engrossed in building an elaborate Lego tower with the twins. Each piece was carefully chosen, each level discussed with scientific seriousness that made Grayson smile despite the situation. From the office, Charlotte watched the interaction with tears in her eyes. Dr. Patterson followed his gaze. "He's coping better than I expected," the doctor commented. "They have that effect on people," Charlotte replied softly. "They make you want to fight, even when it seems impossible." "How soon will the new facility be ready?" "Grayson says within a week. All equipment has already been ordered." Charlotte took a deep breath. "Doctor, I need to know, ethically." "Charlotte," Patterson interrupted her gently, "you are operating in uncharted territory. But if anyone can find a cure, it's you. And now you have the resources and support you need." The Lego tower was almost complete when Charlotte left the office. Luna and Lily had convinced Grayson to add a small flag to the top, turning the building into a castle. "For Alex," Lily explained, placing the last piece. "Now he has a castle in the sky." Grayson felt the tears he had held back all morning finally escape. Charlotte walked over, placing a hand on his shoulder in silent support. "Let's make this work," he whispered, just for her to hear, "no matter what it takes." The twins, satisfied with their work, began to discuss what their next construction project would be, oblivious to the intense moment that was unfolding between the adults. But both Grayson and Charlotte knew that that simple tower of Legos represented much more than a toy. It was a symbol of hope, connection, and promises that needed to be kept. The clanking of keys echoed through the empty hallway as Grayson unlocked the doors to Sterling Innovation Lab's new laboratory. The space, occupying the entire 10th floor of a newly constructed building in Cambridge, was a testament to the power of resources well spent. In just 1 week, the site had been transformed from an empty floor into a state-of-the-art research facility. Charlotte remained at his side, breathing deeply as she took in the sight. State-of-the-art electron microscopes, DNA sequencers, high-speed centrifuges, equipment she had only dreamed of having access to were now at her disposal. "It's surreal," she murmured, running her fingers over a stainless steel counter. "A week ago I was working in an abandoned warehouse. And now you have your own empire," Grayson replied, a slight smile on his lips. "Is the team you selected arriving today?" Charlotte nodded, consulting her tablet. "Dr. Maya Rodriguez will be here in an hour. She gave up a position at MIT to join us. Dr. James Chen arrives from San Francisco in the afternoon, and Dr. Catherine Walsh is already on her way to the Chicago airport." "The best in their field," Grayson commented, remembering the extensive interviews they had conducted over the past few days, all with experience in gene therapy and rare diseases, and all willing to work outside of conventional protocols when necessary, Charlotte added significantly. They understand what's at stake. Charlotte's phone vibrated. It was a message from Maddie with a photo of the twins eating breakfast. Luna and Lily smiled for the camera, their school uniforms impeccable, but Charlotte noticed the dark circles under Lily's eyes. The symptoms were beginning to manifest themselves more clearly. Grayson noticed his change in mood. "How are they today?" "Lily had trouble sleeping last night. Her joint pain is getting worse." Charlotte put away her phone, forcing herself to maintain her professional composure. "That's why we can't waste time." They began to make their way around the lab, checking each workstation. Charlotte had meticulously planned the layout, ensuring each area was optimized for maximum efficiency. Your previous research would be expanded on several fronts simultaneously, increasing the chances of a significant breakthrough. "That area over there," she pointed to a space isolated by glass walls, "will be dedicated to testing the girls' samples. We need to understand why the disease is progressing faster in Lily." "And here," Grayson indicated another section of the lab, "development of modified viral vectors for gene therapy." Charlotte hesitated before continuing. "Grayson, I need you to understand something. Some of the methods I intend to use, they are experimental, controversial." "You mean dangerous?" "Not for girls," she quickly clarified. "But from an ethical and regulatory standpoint, we are in uncharted territory." Grayson approached one of the picture windows, watching the Charles River meander through the city. "When Alex was sick, we followed all protocols. We waited for all approvals. We did everything the right way." His voice trembled slightly. "And he died anyway." The silence that followed was interrupted by the sound of the elevator announcing someone's arrival. Dr. Maya Rodriguez emerged, carrying a briefcase and a laptop. His dark eyes sparkled with excitement at the sight of the laboratory. "Dr. Cooper, Mr. Sterling," she greeted, her accent revealing her Puerto Rican origins. "This is incredible." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The other scientists arrived, equipment was calibrated, and initial protocols were established. Charlotte watched her team work with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Every minute was precious. At the end of the day, when most of the team had left, Charlotte found Grayson in his new office, reviewing documents. "The girls asked if you'd like to have dinner with us again," she said softly. "They made a point of mentioning that they helped make the pasta and meatballs." Grayson looked up from his papers in surprise. "I don't want to bother you." "It's not bothersome. In fact," Charlotte hesitated, "I think your presence has been good for them. And for me too." Something shifted in the air between them, a subtle tension that neither of them were prepared to recognize. Grayson stood up, adjusting his tie in a nervous gesture. "In that case, it would be an honor. But first, there is something I want to show you." He guided her to a room she hadn't noticed before, adjacent to the main laboratory. Upon opening the door, Charlotte was speechless. It was a perfect replica of the hospital's playroom, complete with games, books, and, of course, a huge set of Legos. "For when the girls need to come to the lab for testing," Grayson explained. "I thought it would be nice to have a space of their own here." Charlotte felt tears forming in her eyes. "Grayson, it's the least I can do," he added softly. "Now how about that pasta and meatballs?" As they left the lab together, they both knew that something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a professional partnership or a shared mission. It was the beginning of something deeper, more complex, something neither of them had planned, but which seemed as inevitable as the sun set over Cambridge. Dawn found Charlotte already in the laboratory, her fingers dancing over the keyboard as she analyzed the latest test results. After 2 weeks of intense work, Sterling Innovation Labs had transformed into a hive of scientific activity day and night. Dr. Maya Rodriguez had made a significant breakthrough in modifying viral vectors, while Dr. Chen had revolutionized the genetic sequencing protocol. Movement at the door caught his attention. Grayson walked in carrying 2 cups of artisanal coffee from the little Harvard Square coffee shop she loved so much. "Did you even go home last night?" he asked, placing one of the glasses next to her. "Maddie stayed with the girls," Charlotte replied, taking the coffee gratefully. "We've had an interesting development in Lily's gene expression testing." Grayson pulled out a chair, sitting next to him. In the last few weeks, this closeness had become natural, comfortable. "Show me." Charlotte pointed to a string of data on the screen. "See this pattern here? The defective gene is not just inactive as we thought. It is actively interfering with other regulatory genes. Is that why the disease is progressing faster in her?" "Exactly. And here..." Charlotte opened another file but was interrupted by her phone ringing. It was the girls' school. The color left her face as she listened. Grayson watched his hand tighten on the phone with increasing strength. "I'm going right now," she said, already standing up. "Lily passed out during gym class." "I drive," Grayson declared, accepting no arguments. In the elevator, he noticed how Charlotte's hands were shaking as she tried to send a message to Maddie. The journey to Cambridge Friends School was made in tense silence. Charlotte kept her eyes fixed on the road, as if she could make the car go faster with just her willpower. In the school infirmary, they found Lily lying on a small bed, Luna sitting next to her, holding her hand. The nurse, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Bennett, explained that Lily had felt dizzy while playing a game of tag. "Mommy," Lily murmured sleepily, "I'm sorry I ruined gym day." Charlotte swallowed the lump in her throat, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You didn't ruin anything, my love." "Mr. Sterling came too?" Luna asked, her eyes shining as she saw him standing in the doorway. "Of course I came," he replied, approaching. "Someone needs to make sure you two don't miss the ice cream I promised you yesterday." "But Lily needs to rest," Charlotte began to protest. "Actually," Mrs. Bennett intervened gently, "a little blood sugar might help, and she's already more awake." Grayson knew a perfect place, a family-run ice cream shop in Inman Square that made its own artisanal ice cream. During the short ride, he watched in the rearview mirror as Luna didn't let go of her sister's hand, as if she feared that Lily might disappear if she lost contact. At the ice cream shop, the girls slowly regained their usual spirits, especially when they discovered they could create their own flavor combinations. Lily chose mint and chocolate, while Luna opted for strawberry and cookies. "Mr. Sterling," Lily asked between spoonfuls, "why don't you ever bring pictures of Alex to show us?" Grayson's vanilla ice cream froze halfway in his mouth. Charlotte started to intervene, but he stopped her with a look. "Because sometimes," he replied carefully, "when we really love someone we've lost, keeping the photos just for ourselves helps keep the memories special." "Like a secret treasure?" Luna asked. "Just like a secret treasure. But treasures can be shared with special friends," Lily insisted with the simple logic of a child. Grayson felt something break inside him, not painfully, but as if a wall was finally giving way. Maybe you're right. I have some photos on my phone." The next half hour was spent with Grayson showing pictures of Alex, playing baseball, building sandcastles, smiling with a missing tooth. Charlotte watched in wonder as each story brought more light to his eyes, as if sharing these memories was healing something deep. "He had kind eyes like yours," Luna commented, making Grayson choke on his ice cream. Back at the lab, while the girls rested in the playroom under Maddie's care, Charlotte found Grayson in his office, staring at one of Alex's photos on his phone. "Thank you," she said softly. "For today. For everything. They have a way of breaking down our defenses, don't they?" he replied, putting his phone away. "Charlotte, what happened today? We need to speed up the research. The new protocols Maya developed are ready for testing, if they work." "When they work," Grayson corrected. "We cannot accept any other result." Charlotte felt the weight of that determination, mixed with something else. Something that had been growing between them over the last few weeks. Something neither of them were ready to name. "The girls asked if you'd like to come to Thanksgiving dinner," she said suddenly. "It'll be something small, just us and Maddie, but I'd love to," Grayson replied before she could finish. The sun was beginning to set over Cambridge, painting the laboratory with golden hues. At the end of the hallway, they could hear the twins' laughter coming from the playroom, a sound that, for both of them, had become as precious as the time they were fighting to gain. The aroma of roast turkey and pumpkin pie filled the small Somerville apartment as Charlotte tried to keep Luna and Lily out of the kitchen. The twins, wearing matching aprons with little pumpkins printed on them, insisted on helping with every detail of Thanksgiving dinner. "Mommy, can I check the mashed potatoes again?" Luna asked for the third time in 5 minutes. "And I want to put the marshmallows on the sweet potatoes," Lily added, her energy surprisingly high after a difficult week of experimental treatments in the lab. Charlotte checked her watch. Grayson would be arriving in less than an hour. The last few weeks had brought significant progress in the research, but also a subtle shift in the dynamics between them all. His dinner visits had become more frequent, and the girls eagerly awaited each one. "Aunt Maddie!" the twins shouted in unison as the door opened, revealing Maddie carrying more last-minute ingredients. "I brought the cranberry sauce that Mr. Sterling mentioned was Alex's favorite," Maddie announced, handing a homemade jar to Charlotte. The gesture made Charlotte pause. It was typical Grayson, always thinking of ways to include Alex in their moments together, no longer as a painful shadow, but as a cherished presence that brought them all together. The doorbell rang precisely at 6 o'clock. Grayson looked impeccable in a casual navy sweater, carrying a bottle of wine and a package wrapped in colorful paper. "Happy Thanksgiving," he said, but barely had time to finish the sentence before Luna and Lily attacked him with enthusiastic hugs. "They are gifts?" Lily asked, her eyes sparkling at the sight of the package. "Actually, it's something I wanted to share with you," Grayson replied, entering the apartment. "Remember when we talked about treasures that can be shared with special friends?" The girls nodded vigorously. Charlotte and Maddie exchanged curious glances while Grayson sat on the couch with a twin on each side. Inside the package was a blue leather-bound photo album. "This is Alex's Thanksgiving album," Grayson explained, his voice soft but firm. "Every year we would take special photos on this day." The next pages revealed a smiling Alex at different ages, from baby to his last Thanksgiving, always with that radiant smile that Grayson had inherited. "He liked mashed potatoes as much as Luna," Lily exclaimed, pointing to a photo where Alex had his face smeared with mash. "And look, he also wore a sweater on special days," Luna noted, making everyone laugh. Charlotte watched the scene from the kitchen, her heart sinking at the intimacy of the moment. Grayson had come a long way since that first meeting in the cemetery, from a man consumed by grief to someone who was learning to turn his loss into connection. Dinner was served at the living room table, decorated with candles and autumn flower arrangements that the girls had made at school. Before they started, Luna insisted on doing the traditional round of thanks. "I'm grateful for Mommy, for Lily, for Aunt Maddie, and for Mr. Sterling who makes Mommy smile more," she declared with the brutal honesty of a 7-year-old. Charlotte blushed intensely, while Maddie tried to hide a smile behind her napkin. Grayson seemed momentarily speechless. "I'm grateful for the new medicines that don't make me sick like the old ones," Lily continued, "and that Mr. Sterling built that cool room in the lab just for us." When it was his turn, Grayson took a deep breath. "I'm grateful to have met you that day at the cemetery, for showing me that there is life and love beyond loss, and most of all," he looked directly at Charlotte, "for giving me a reason to fight again." The silence that followed was charged with emotion, broken only by the soft sound of candles crackling. Charlotte felt tears forming in her eyes, but she quickly held them back. "I'm grateful for this family we've built," she said finally, her voice shaking slightly. "For everyone here and," she glanced at the photo album on the side table, "for those who live in our hearts." The meal passed with stories and laughter, the twins insisting on finding out more about Alex's antics from Thanksgiving's past. Grayson shared each memory with a smile, his gaze occasionally meeting Charlotte's in moments of silent understanding. After dessert, while Maddie helped the girls get ready for bed, Charlotte and Grayson stayed on the apartment's small balcony, sharing the rest of the wine. "Thank you for sharing the album," she said softly. "It meant a lot to them. To all of us." "I noticed something today," Grayson replied, his gaze fixed on the city lights. "When Alex died, I thought I would never have a family again. That part of my life was gone forever." Charlotte felt her heart accelerate. "And now? Now I understand that family is not something you lose or gain. It's something you build, day after day, with the people destiny puts in your path." He turned to face her. "Charlotte, The sound of the balcony door opening interrupted the moment. It was Lily, already in her pajamas. "Mommy, can I sleep with Alex's album next to my bed? I promise to take good care of it." Grayson smiled, that smile that now appeared more frequently. "Of course you can, princess. But tomorrow you have to tell me what your favorite photo is, okay?" Lily nodded solemnly before being led back to bed by Maddie. The previous moment had passed, but something had changed irrevocably between Charlotte and Grayson. Something that, like Thanksgiving itself, spoke of gratitude, family, and new beginnings. The day after Thanksgiving brought renewed energy to the laboratory at Sterling Innovation Labs. Charlotte arrived early, finding Maya Rodriguez already poring over the latest test results with modified viral vectors. "Dr. Cooper, you need to see this," Maya called, barely containing her excitement. The latest sequence of tests showed a 78% success rate in correcting the defective gene in a controlled environment. Charlotte felt her heart race as she looked at the data. After weeks of trial and error, they finally had something promising. She was about to call Grayson when he appeared at the lab door, carrying coffee for the entire team as had become his habit. "Good morning," he began, but stopped when he noticed the electric atmosphere in the room. "What happened?" "We have results," Charlotte announced, her voice shaking slightly. Maya achieved a 78% success rate with the new viral vector. Grayson placed the coffees on the counter and approached the monitor. "That means that we can start thinking about clinical trials," Charlotte added. "But we need to be extremely cautious. A mistake could—" "Let's not dwell on mistakes now," Grayson interrupted her gently. "Let's focus on the next step." The following hours were dedicated to reviewing every detail of the protocol. Dr. James Chen pointed out possible vector stability issues at room temperature, while Dr. Catherine Walsh worked on solutions to optimize delivery of genetic material to target cells. In the middle of the afternoon, Charlotte's phone rang. It was the girls' school again, but this time it wasn't an emergency. Luna and Lily had been selected to present their science project at the state fair. "They made a DNA model using gummy bears," Charlotte explained to Grayson, who was smiling beside her. "Apparently they really impressed the judges." "We need to celebrate," he declared. "How about taking the whole team out to dinner? The girls too, of course. I know a perfect place on Beacon Hill." The restaurant chosen by Grayson was an elegant but welcoming establishment with a private room that perfectly accommodated the group. Luna and Lily, still wearing their school uniforms, sat between Charlotte and Grayson, while the rest of the team spread out around the table. "So," Lily asked Maya, "did you manage to get the medicine to work?" A tense silence fell over the table. Maya looked at Charlotte, unsure how to respond. "We're closer than ever, darling," Charlotte replied carefully, "but we still have a lot of work to do." "Like building a Lego castle," Luna added sagely. "You need to make sure each piece is in the right place before you put the next one in." Grayson smiled, remembering the tower they had built together. "Exactly like that, princess." Dinner progressed with lively discussions about science, dreams, and possibilities. The twins charmed the team with their insightful observations and intelligent questions. At one point, Charlotte noticed Grayson watching the scene with an expression she had never seen before, a mixture of contentment and something deeper. When dessert arrived, a spectacular chocolate sundae that made the girls' eyes light up, Lily began to show signs of tiredness. Her skin was paler than usual, and she barely touched the ice cream. "I think it's time for us to go home," Charlotte said softly, exchanging a worried look with Grayson. "I'll take you," he offered immediately. In the car, Luna quickly fell asleep, but Lily remained awake, staring out the window with a thoughtful expression that seemed beyond her 7 years. "Mr. Sterling," she called softly, "do you think Alex would be happy to know you're helping us?" Charlotte felt her breath hitch, but Grayson responded with surprising calm. "I'm sure he did, Lily. Alex always wanted to help other people. It was one of the most special things about him." When they arrived at the apartment, Grayson insisted on helping carry the sleeping girls inside. After settling them into their beds, he and Charlotte stood in the hallway, the soft light from the lamp creating dancing shadows on the walls. "Charlotte," Grayson began, his voice low so as not to wake the girls, "about today's results." "I know," she replied. "It's promising, but it's still no guarantee." "It's not that." He took a step closer. "I want you to know that regardless of the results, I'm not just here for the research." Charlotte's heart quickened. "Grayson, The sound of Lily coughing interrupted the moment. Charlotte ran into the bedroom, finding her daughter sitting on the bed looking disoriented. "It's okay, my love," she whispered, sitting down next to Lily and stroking her hair. "Mommy is here." Grayson appeared in the doorway carrying a glass of water. Without saying anything, he handed Charlotte the glass and sat down on the chair next to the bed. Together they watched over Lily's sleep until her breathing calmed completely. Later in the kitchen, Charlotte finally let the tears fall. "We're running out of time, Grayson." "I know," he replied, enveloping her in a firm hug. "But we are not alone in this fight. Not anymore." The sound of the laboratory alarms broke the calm of the December morning. Charlotte ran through the halls of Sterling Innovation Labs, her white lab coat billowing behind her. The containment chamber where they kept the last samples of the viral vector was indicating a critical change in temperature. "Maya!" she shouted, finding her colleague already hunched over the controls. "What happened?" "Cooling system failure," Maya replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "The temperature is rising rapidly. If we don't stabilize in the next few minutes, we will lose all the samples from the last battery." Charlotte felt her stomach sink. 3 weeks of intensive work, including weekends and sleepless nights, were at risk. Samples that had shown the most promising results so far. "Dr. Chen is on his way with backup equipment," Catherine informed, entering the room. "But I don't know if it will arrive in time." Charlotte's phone vibrated in her pocket. It was Maddie. Lily had woken up with a high fever during the night. Charlotte felt the world spin for a moment, torn between the crisis in the lab and the need to rush home. "Go," Maya said firmly. "We take care of it here." Before Charlotte could respond, Grayson appeared in the doorway, still wearing his suit from the morning investor meeting. "I got the alert," he said, quickly assessing the situation. "Charlotte, Maddie called me. I'll walk you home." "But the samples, the team can handle it," he insisted gently. "Your daughter needs you now." The drive to Somerville was tense, with Charlotte alternating between messages to the lab team and calls to the girl's doctor. Grayson maintained an outward calm, but his fingers gripped the steering wheel hard enough to turn his knuckles white. In the apartment, they found Lily curled up in her favorite blanket on the couch, Luna sitting next to her reading a story. Maddie was in the kitchen making ginger tea. "Mommy," Lily murmured, her voice weak. "I'm sorry to make you leave work." "Never apologize for that, my love," Charlotte replied, rushing to hug her daughter. Lily's skin felt too hot, and her breathing seemed more labored than usual. "Mr. Sterling?" Luna asked, her big eyes full of concern. "Isn't the new medicine working?" Grayson knelt beside the couch, leveling his gaze with hers. "Sometimes it takes a while to find the perfect solution, like when you redo an experiment several times at school until it works, remember?" Luna nodded, but her eyes remained worried. Charlotte exchanged a meaningful look with Grayson as she took Lily's temperature. 39.5 photographs. "I'll call an ambulance," Grayson declared, already pulling out his phone. "No," Charlotte protested. "We can use my car." "Charlotte," he interrupted softly. "Let me help, please." Something about the way he said those words, the mix of strength and vulnerability in his voice, made Charlotte give in. While they waited for the ambulance, Grayson organized everything. He called Massachusetts General Hospital to ensure a team was ready to receive them, instructed Maya on how to proceed with the compromised samples, and even managed to make Luna smile with a story about how Alex once tried to create a secret laboratory in the broom closet. At the hospital, Dr. Patterson met them in the emergency room. "Let's do some tests," he explained as a nurse took Lily away. "Charlotte, I need you to fill out some forms." "I'll take care of the forms," Grayson offered. "Stay with Lily." The following hours were a blur of exams, appointments, and agonizing waiting. Luna refused to leave the hospital, so Maddie brought her school books and a few changes of clothes. Grayson remained a constant, comforting presence, handling paperwork, making sure everyone ate something, and keeping the lab staff updated. It was evening when Dr. Patterson finally returned with the results. "The progression of the disease is accelerating," he explained gravely. "Her immune system is starting to fail." Charlotte felt her legs weaken. Grayson was immediately at her side, a firm hand on her back. "How long?" she managed to ask. "Without significant intervention? Weeks, maybe a month." The silence that followed was deafening. Charlotte looked through the window of the room where Lily slept. Luna curled up in the chair next to her sister's bed. "The lab results," Grayson began. "The new vector." "It hasn't been tested enough yet," Charlotte added, her voice shaking. "The risks." "What risks are greater than losing your daughter?" Grayson asked softly. Dr. Patterson cleared his throat. "There is a protocol for experimental treatments in terminal cases. If you have anything—" Charlotte closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision she needed to make. As a scientist, she knew the risks of using an incompletely tested treatment. As a mother, I knew I had no choice. "I'm going to need your help," she said finally, looking at Grayson. "Of all your help." "Always," he replied. And in that single word was contained a promise that went beyond the present moment. Massachusetts General Hospital took on a different atmosphere in the following weeks. Room 507, where Lily was admitted, became an extension of the Sterling Innovation Lab's laboratory. Charlotte had set up a small workstation near the window, while Grayson converted the visitor's desk into his makeshift office. "The new results are in," Maya announced, entering the room with her tablet. Lily slept peacefully, with Luna drawing in her notebook next to the bed. Vector stability improved significantly after Dr. Chen's modifications. Charlotte looked at the data, feeling a spark of hope. The success rate has risen to 85% in a controlled environment. But we no longer have time for further testing," Grayson interrupted gently, moving closer. "Dr. Patterson just sent me Lily's latest scans. Her liver function is getting worse." The weight of that reality hit Charlotte like a wave. Her daughter was dying, and she held in her hands a possible cure that could both save her and speed up the process. As a scientist, she knew the risks. As a mother, I felt like I had no choice. "Luna, darling," Charlotte called softly. "Why don't you go with Mr. Sterling and get that special hot chocolate from the coffee shop?" Luna hesitated, her gaze switching between her sleeping sister and the adults. "Can I get one for Lily too? For when she wakes up?" "Of course you can, Princess," Grayson replied, holding out his hand to her. "And maybe we can stop by the gift shop to pick out something nice to decorate the room with." After they left, Charlotte and Maya pored over the data. "If we start treatment tomorrow," Maya explained, "we can monitor the initial response over the weekend. The team is already prepared to work in shifts." "What if it goes wrong?" Charlotte whispered, more to herself than to Maya. "What if it works?" a weak voice replied from the bed. Lily had woken up and was watching her mother with those eyes that seemed to contain all the wisdom in the world. "Honey, how long have you been awake?" "Long enough," Lily replied, trying to sit up. Charlotte ran to help her. "Mommy, I want to try the new medicine." "Lily, it's too dangerous." "We haven't yet." "But you and Mr. Sterling worked hard on it, didn't you?" Lily interrupted. And Dr. Maya, too, and everyone else in the lab. She paused to catch her breath. Alex would have been brave. Charlotte felt the tears she had been holding back for days finally spill over. Your little warrior, always thinking about others, always making connections that adults often lost sight of. Grayson and Luna returned to find mother and daughter embracing, with Maya discreetly wiping her own eyes. Luna immediately ran over to join in the hug, while Grayson remained in the doorway, holding cups of hot chocolate and a bag from the gift shop. Have we decided? He asked softly, though something in his eyes suggested he already knew the answer. Tomorrow, Charlotte replied, her voice steady despite her tears. We start tomorrow. The next few hours were a whirlwind of preparations. Dr. Patterson was notified, emergency protocols were established, and the laboratory team worked tirelessly to prepare the first dose of the experimental treatment. That night, after the girls finally fell asleep, Charlotte found Grayson in the small waiting area at the end of the hall. He was on the phone, finalizing the last details with Sterling's legal team. Everything's ready, he said after hanging up. All documents were signed, all authorizations obtained. Charlotte sank into the chair next to him, the weariness of weeks of work and worry finally setting in. How can you look so calm? I'm not, Grayson admitted, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. I'm terrified. But I learned from Alex that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply moving forward, even when we're scared. Grayson, if something goes wrong, then we will face it together, he added, holding her hand. Charlotte, you're not alone in this. Not anymore. The touch of his hand sent an electric current through her body, reminding her of all the unspoken moments between them over the past few weeks. How he had become a constant presence not just in the lab, but in their lives. How his daughters adored him. How she herself had begun to depend on his strength, his determination, his affection. Why are you doing all this? She asked, even though part of her already knew the answer. Because... Grayson hesitated, his eyes meeting hers. Because somewhere between that day at the cemetery and now, you three became my family too. And this time, I won't stand by and watch illness take someone I love. Morning came with a heavy stillness to room 507 at Massachusetts General Hospital. Charlotte hadn't slept, watching Lily's every breath throughout the night, memorizing every detail of her daughter's face before the experimental treatment began. It's time, Maya announced softly, entering the room with a small thermal bag containing the first dose of the modified viral vector. Dr. Patterson followed, accompanied by 2 specialized nurses and Catherine, who carried a laptop with monitoring protocols. Luna, who had insisted on staying, held her sister's hand with determination. It's going to be okay, Lily. You're the strongest person I know. Grayson arrived a few minutes later, bringing coffee and bagels that no one touched. His normally impeccable suit was slightly wrinkled, revealing that he had also spent the night at the hospital, working in his makeshift office. All emergency equipment is in place, he reported, his professional voice masking the anxiety in his eyes. Dr. Chen's team is on standby in the lab for any necessary adjustments. Mommy, Lily called softly, her voice weaker than usual. Can I wear my unicorn pajamas? The ones Mr. Sterling brought? Of course you can, my love, Charlotte replied, trying to keep her voice steady as she helped her daughter change her clothes. The pajamas, a gift that Grayson had chosen especially for that day, had little unicorn scientists printed on them, a detail that had made Lily smile when she received them. Dr. Patterson began to explain the procedure, but Lily gently interrupted him. I know how it works, doctor. The medicine will go up my arm and look for the parts of my DNA that need fixing, like when Mommy fixes my broken toys. The simplicity of the explanation made Charlotte choke on tears. Grayson discreetly placed a hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. Exactly like that, dear, Dr. Patterson confirmed, exchanging an admiring look with the team. You are a very smart scientist. The administration of the treatment itself was almost anticlimactic. a clear infusion bag, not unlike the hundreds Lily had received before. But everyone in the room knew that its contents carried both hope and danger. The first hours were intense monitoring. Maya and Catherine took turns analyzing every small change in Lily's vital signs, while Dr. Patterson supervised everything with meticulous attention. Stable temperature, Catherine announced after the second hour. Blood pressure within expected parameters. Luna had fallen asleep in the armchair next to the bed, still holding her sister's hand. Lily alternated between periods of light sleep and moments of lucidity, during which she insisted on listening to stories about Alex. "Tell that one about the secret lab again," she asked Grayson during one of his vigils. "You've heard that story 3 times today," he smiled, tucking the blanket over her. "But it's my favorite," Lily insisted. "It makes me feel brave like him." Charlotte watched the interaction from the bedroom door, where she had just returned with more coffee. The ease with which Grayson interacted with his daughters, the affection in his voice when he spoke of Alex, the way he had become an indispensable part of their lives, it all hit her with sudden clarity. "The first blood markers have arrived," Maya whispered, approaching with her tablet. "Charlotte, look at this." The numbers on the screen showed a small but significant change in gene expression levels. It was too early to celebrate, but it was a sign that the treatment was, at the very least, reaching its target. "We need at least 48 hours to know for sure," Charlotte muttered, more to herself than to the others. "And we will wait every minute together," Grayson replied, rising from the chair next to Lily. "You need to get some rest. I'll take them." "I can't." "Yes, you can," he insisted gently. "There's a comfortable couch in the doctor's break room. Dr. Patterson already authorized it. An hour of sleep, Charlotte. Please." She wanted to protest, but the fatigue from weeks of hard work and sleepless nights was starting to take its toll. Plus, there was something in Grayson's eyes that said he would move heaven and earth to protect his daughters while she rested. "1 hour," she agreed finally. "Wake me if there are any changes, no matter how small." "I promise," he replied, and in that single word was contained the full weight of his commitment, not only to the present moment, but to the future that they had all, unexpectedly, begun to build together. The third day after starting the experimental treatment brought a subtle but significant change to room 507. Lily woke up with more energy than she had shown in weeks, ordering waffles for breakfast and insisting on showing Grayson her new drawing, a colorful representation of what she imagined to be her DNA being repaired. "See these shiny parts, Mr. Sterling?" she explained, pointing to purple and gold swirls on her paper. "It's the special medicine working its magic inside me." Charlotte, who had just returned from the lab with the latest test results, felt her heart skip a beat when she saw her daughter sitting up in bed, color in her cheeks for the first time in days. Maya and Catherine had spent the night analyzing the blood samples, and the numbers were promising. Gene expression was starting to normalize. "Inflammatory markers are down 30%, she announced to Grayson, who was helping Luna organize her school books on the small table by the window, "and liver function is showing signs of improvement." "Mommy," Luna interrupted, her eyes shining with hope. "Does this mean it's working? That Lily will be okay?" Charlotte exchanged a look with Grayson before carefully responding. "It means we're on the right track, darling, but we still need to be patient." Dr. Patterson chose that moment to make his morning rounds, accompanied by a larger-than-usual team. The medical community's interest in Lily's case had grown exponentially in recent days as the first positive results began to circulate. "Good morning, my favorite scientist," he greeted Lily, who smiled in response. "How are you feeling today?" "Less tired," Lily answered honestly. "And look, I managed to eat all my breakfast." The doctor carefully examined the vital signs and the latest scans, his professional expression gradually softening into a restrained smile. "The improvements are significant," he confirmed, "but we need to maintain intensive monitoring for at least another week." "Dr. Patterson," Grayson called, his voice betraying a tension that only Charlotte seemed to notice. "What about the side effects we discussed?" "So far, no sign of the complications we feared," the doctor replied. The viral vector appears to be behaving exactly as expected, focusing only on target cells. The afternoon brought an unexpected surprise. Maya entered the room carrying a small cake decorated with sugar flowers. It was the 3-week anniversary since Sterling Innovation Labs had opened. It was Dr. Chen's idea, she explained, placing the cake on the bedside table. He said we needed to score the small victories. While the twins enjoyed the cake, Charlotte allowed herself a moment to reflect. 3 weeks that had changed everything. Not just Lily's life, but all of theirs. His gaze met Grayson's, who was watching the girls with an expression that mixed joy and vulnerability. "Penny, for your thoughts," he murmured, moving closer. "I was thinking about how life takes turns," she replied softly. 2 months ago, I was working alone in an abandoned warehouse, trying not to give up hope. And now we have an entire team of dedicated geniuses, a state-of-the-art laboratory, and—" He paused meaningfully. "A family none of us expected to meet." The moment was interrupted by Lily calling them both to taste her piece of cake. "You have to try it together," she insisted with that peculiar wisdom of children. "It's better this way." Luna agreed enthusiastically. "Like a science experiment, we need all participants to have accurate results." The rest of the afternoon passed at a lighter pace. Catherine brought the latest lab reports, all indicating steady progress. Dr. Chen appeared briefly to discuss adjustments to the protocol, but ended up staying longer than he planned, captivated by the twins' insightful questions about their work. When night came, Maddie came to get Luna to spend a few hours at home, showering and getting clean clothes. Lily, although more cheerful, was exhausted after a day of so much activity. "Mr. Sterling," she called sleepily as he adjusted her blanket. "Do you think Alex is proud of us?" Grayson felt his throat tighten. "I'm sure he did, Princess. He always loved helping people, you know? Especially special people like you and Luna." Charlotte watched from the bathroom door, where she had just changed her clothes, her heart overflowing with the scene. Somewhere between that first meeting in the cemetery and now, Grayson had become not just a partner in the search for a cure, but a fundamental part of their lives. "Charlotte," he called softly after Lily fell asleep, "come and see this." On the laptop open on the improvised table, the latest results showed a series of graphs with promising ascending lines. But it wasn't the numbers that had caught his attention. It was a small note in the corner of the screen, an email from the hospital's ethics committee approving the expansion of treatment to other Callaway syndrome patients. "That means," she began, barely daring to believe it, "that even though we still have a long way to go with Lily, we're already making history," Grayson added, his voice breaking. "What began as a mission to save one life is turning into hope for many others." Charlotte couldn't hold back the tears she had been holding back all day. Grayson wrapped her in his arms, and there, in the silence of the hospital room lit only by the soft light of Lily's heart monitor, they allowed hope to finally overcome fear. 6 months have passed since that first dose of the experimental treatment in room 507. Spring in Boston painted the MIT campus in shades of green and pink as Lily and Luna, hand in hand, walked up the steps to the main auditorium. It was the day of the presentation of the official results of the Sterling Innovation Labs treatment, and the twins had insisted on being present. "Do you think there are a lot of people in there?" Luna whispered to her sister, adjusting her matching navy blue dress. "It doesn't matter," Lily replied with the confidence that had become her trademark since her recovery. "Mom and Mr. Sterling are going to tell everyone how they fixed my DNA." Charlotte, a few steps behind with Grayson, couldn't help but smile upon hearing the comment. The last few months had been a roller coaster of emotions. Lily's gradual recovery, the expansion of treatment to other patients, and the subtle but profound transformation in her own life. "Nervous?" Grayson asked softly, his hand finding hers in a gesture that had become natural. "A little," she admitted, "but it's a different kind of nervousness. It's no longer about the fear of losing, it's about the responsibility of having achieved it." The auditorium was packed with the medical and scientific community from across the East Coast, Maya, Catherine, and Dr. Chen were already on stage, organizing the presentations. Dr. Patterson had a front row seat alongside other experts in rare genetic diseases. "Mommy," Lily called before Charlotte took the stage. "Can I show them my DNA drawing later?" "Of course you can, my love," Charlotte replied, kissing her daughter's forehead. The drawing in question, an updated version of that first hospital sketch, had become an unofficial symbol of Sterling Innovation Labs, framed and hanging at the lab's entrance. Grayson took his place next to Charlotte on stage, while the twins sat with Maddie in the front row. The presentation began with technical data, success rates, methodology, comparative results. But it was when Charlotte started talking about her personal journey that the audience truly fell silent. "Callaway syndrome is not just a sequence of faulty genes or a set of symptoms," she said, her voice firm. "It's a race against time, a battle that many families have lost, including the family of the man who made this research possible." Grayson felt his throat tighten as Alex's photo appeared on the screen. Not the sick photo of him, but one where he was smiling widely, holding his toy scientist kit. "The loss of Alex Sterling was not in vain," Charlotte continued. "Your father turned pain into purpose, and together we achieved what many considered impossible. Not just a treatment, but a cure." The next slides showed the progression of Lily and the other 12 patients who had already received the treatment. All showed the same promising results: regeneration of affected tissues, normalization of liver function, stabilization of the immune system. But numbers and graphs don't tell the whole story. Grayson took the floor. "The true miracle is sitting in the front row of this auditorium. Lily Cooper hasn't just survived, she's thriving. And with her, a new generation of children will have the chance my Alex didn't have." The presentation ended with a standing ovation. Lily and Luna ran onto the stage, no longer able to contain their excitement. The DNA drawing was proudly displayed, photographed by dozens of cell phones, and quickly went viral on scientific social media. Later, after the interviews were over and the last questions were answered, the family gathered in the small MIT cafe where it all began, the same place where Charlotte used to study during her doctorate, dreaming of making a difference. "So," Luna asked as she sipped her strawberry milkshake, "now that Lily is cured, what happens?" "Well," Grayson replied, exchanging a meaningful look with Charlotte, "first let's help other children who need the treatment, and then, Charlotte added, her heart speeding up slightly, "we were thinking about some changes." "What kind of changes?" Lily asked, her keen intuition picking up something in the air. "The kind that involves officially bringing our families together," Grayson replied softly, taking Charlotte's hand. "If you two agree, of course." The silence that followed only lasted a second before the twins burst into screams of joy, drawing amused looks from the other patrons of the cafe. "Finally!" Luna exclaimed. "We were already wondering when you would realize that you love each other." "Are you going to be our real father?" Lily asked, her eyes shining with hope. "If you'll have me," Grayson replied, his voice cracking. "Although I have loved you as my daughters for a long time now." Charlotte watched the scene with tears in her eyes, thinking about how life had mysterious ways of healing old wounds. Somehow, the tragedy that had broken Grayson's heart had led him to them, and together they had found not only a medical cure, but also healing for their hurting souls. "Can we have the wedding in the lab?" Lily suggested excitedly. "With everyone wearing white coats? And decorating with DNA models," Luna added. Charlotte and Grayson laughed, their hands still clasped together on the table. The future opened before them like a blank page, no longer stained with fear and loss, but shining with infinite possibilities. Across the street, the Sterling Innovation Labs building gleamed in the afternoon sun, its windows reflecting the blue Boston sky. Inside, dozens of scientists continued the work that had begun with a promise made in the silence of a cemetery, the promise to transform pain into hope, loss into purpose, and loneliness into family.